This is a story about how I lost my wife but found myself, and how the truth always catches up with those who hide it. My name is Ethan Moore. I'm 32, and I used to think my life with Lisa was the kind people envied. Not in a loud, flashy way, but in that quiet, steady way that feels like home. We lived in a cozy craftsman house in Portland, Oregon, with ivy climbing the porch and a backyard just big enough for a fire pit. Most nights, we'd cook together, Lisa chopping vegetables with precision, me tossing in spices with a little less care. We'd pour cheap wine, binge half an episode of some true crime series, and laugh about nothing. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Or so I thought. I'm a cybersecurity analyst, the kind of guy who spends hours staring at code, server logs, and firewalls, making sure clients' data stays safe. I work from home, usually in a hoodie, with a coffee mug that's never empty. Lisa, on the other hand, was a project manager at a tech company downtown. She was sharp, the kind of woman who could silence a room with a single raised eyebrow. Her world was meetings, deadlines, and color-coded schedules. Mine was silence and screens. We didn't overlap much professionally, but we respected each other's space. At least I thought we did. Lately, though, something felt off. It started small. Lisa would glance at her phone and smile in a way that wasn't for me. She'd tilt the screen, just out of view when I walked into the room. "Work stuff," she'd say if I asked, her voice light but clipped. She started staying late at the office, blaming traffic or last-minute meetings. Her phone, once left face up on the counter, was now always locked, tucked in her pocket like a secret. I catch her laughing at texts she wouldn't share, her eyes bright with something I couldn't name. "You're overthinking, Ethan," she'd say when I tried to talk about it, brushing me off like I was a kid spooked by shadows. But the shadows were there, and they were growing. One morning, over breakfast, she mentioned a company retreat. "It's this weekend thing in the Oregon mountains," she said, stirring her coffee. "Team-building nonsense, but spouses are invited. You should come." I hesitated. I'd been buried in a client project, some startup panicking about a data breach, and the idea of small talk with her coworkers sounded exhausting. But she leaned across the table, her hand brushing mine. "You've been glued to that laptop for weeks. It'll be good for us." Her smile was warm, convincing, and I wanted to believe her. Maybe we needed this. Maybe I needed to stop seeing ghosts in every glance. So I nodded, packed a duffel with hiking boots and a dog-eared paperback, and told myself it'd be fine. The drive to the lodge was quiet, just the hum of tires and Lisa's playlist. Indie folk songs I didn't know. She seemed lighter, chatting about her team's latest project, dropping names like Marcy, Jay, and Mike, her coworker who always seemed to pop up in her stories. "Mike's leading the new client pitch," she'd say, or "Mike brought in coffee for the team." I didn't think much of it then, but his name lingered, a pebble in my shoe I couldn't shake. When we arrived, the lodge was everything you'd expect. Pine trees stretching into the sky, air so clean it almost hurt to breathe, and a sprawling wooden building with fairy lights strung along the eaves. Lisa's coworkers greeted me with polite smiles, though I could tell they weren't sure what to do with me. I was Lisa's husband, a footnote in their world. They were friendly enough. Marcy offered me a beer, Jay asked about my job, but I felt like an outsider, nodding through conversations I didn't fully follow. The first day was easy. We did a group hike, ate overpriced granola bars, and sat through icebreakers that made everyone groan. Lisa stayed close, her hand grazing my arm, her laugh bright when I cracked a bad joke. For a moment, I thought maybe she was right. Maybe this was what we needed. A reset, a chance to reconnect. But that night, as the sun dipped below the mountains and the air turned crisp, everything changed. The second night of the company retreat in the Oregon mountains started innocently enough. The air was sharp with pine and wood smoke, and a fire pit crackled in the center of the lodge's clearing. Lisa's coworkers sprawled across folding chairs and picnic blankets, clutching beers and Esmores kits. Someone had hooked up a Bluetooth speaker, playing soft indie rock that barely cut through the chatter. Lisa sat next to me, her shoulder brushing mine, her laugh warm when I muttered something about the overpriced marshmallows. For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe the distance I'd felt between us was just in my head, a byproduct of too many late nights debugging code. But then Mike spoke, and the illusion shattered. Mike was the kind of guy who carried himself like he'd just stepped off a craft brewery ad. Tall, buzz haircut, a grin that screamed weekend soccer leagues. He leaned back on one elbow, a marshmallow skewered on a stick, and fixed his eyes on me. "So, Ethan," he said, his voice dripping with mock curiosity, "what's it like pretending to work in sweatpants all day while the rest of us grind in the real world?" A few people chuckled, the kind of polite laughter you give a bad joke at a party. I forced a smile, assuming he was just trying to break the ice. "Not pretending," I said, keeping my tone light. "Fixing servers in pajamas still pays the bills." He laughed, louder this time, like I'd handed him a punchline. Sure. But, Lisa's told us you're like this mystery guy. Hoodie on, locked in your cave, saving the internet or whatever. Sounds like you're living in a hacker movie." The group erupted, their laughter sharp and sudden, cutting through the night. I turned to Lisa, expecting her to roll her eyes, to give me that look that said, "He's an idiot. Ignore him." But instead, she was laughing too, harder than I'd seen in months. "Oh, Mike's not wrong," she said, her voice bright with amusement. "Ethan just vanishes into that office. I swear, I don't even know what he does half the time. It's like he's Batman, but with coffee stains." The laughter swelled, a wave that drowned out the crackling fire. Something inside me cracked too. A fault line I hadn't known was there. I stared at her, my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, and saw a stranger. Her eyes sparkled in the firelight, her shoulders shook with giggles, but none of it was for me. It was for them, for Mike. I felt the weight of every pair of eyes in that circle, her people, watching me like I was the punchline. My throat tightened. "You're defending him," I said, my voice low but steady. "Not me." Her smile faltered just for a second. "Ethan, come on," she said, her tone sharp, the one she used when she thought I was being dramatic. "It was a joke. Don't make it a thing." The group went quiet, the kind of awkward silence that follows a misstep. Mike cleared his throat, poking at the fire, avoiding my gaze. I stood, brushing graham cracker crumbs from my hands, and looked at her one last time. "You laughed at me," I said. "With him." I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked toward our cabin, the gravel crunching under my boots, the cold seeping through my jacket. She didn't follow. Later, long after the fire died and the music stopped, she slipped into the cabin without a word. I was awake, staring at the wooden beams of the ceiling, replaying her laugh in my head. She climbed into bed, her back to me, and said nothing. No apology, no explanation, just silence. I lay there, the space between us wider than the mattress, and realized I didn't know her anymore. That night, in a cabin surrounded by pines and stars, I felt the first real fracture in our marriage. It wasn't just Mike's words or her laughter. It was the way she chose to let me shrink, to let me be small in front of her world. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She chatted with her team over brunch, her voice bright, her hand grazing Mike's arm as they shared some inside joke. I watched from across the room, sipping coffee that tasted like ash, and saw it clearly. She wasn't just distant. She was slipping away, and Mike was part of it. I shook hands with people whose names I barely remembered, nodded through goodbyes, and climbed into the car for the long drive home. Lisa played a podcast, laughing at something I didn't hear. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and said nothing. The silence wasn't just in the car. It was in me now, a quiet resolve forming beneath the hurt. Back in Portland, the cracks deepened. Lisa's late nights became routine. Meetings ran over, she'd say, or traffic was a nightmare. Her phone stayed glued to her hand, the screen angled away from me. Once I caught her on the porch, whispering into it, her voice soft and secretive. When I stepped outside, she hung up fast. "Work," she said, brushing past me. Client was freaking out, but she didn't meet my eyes. I started noticing patterns. Wednesdays and Fridays, she'd leave early, claiming closed project reviews. When I asked what that meant, she snapped, "It's internal stuff, Ethan. You wouldn't get it." Her calendar, once synced with mine, was now private. Her selfies, the ones she took in the morning, vanished from her phone by evening, erased like evidence. One Sunday, I saw her in the bathroom, snapping a mirror selfie in a new dress. Her lips painted a shade of red I didn't recognize. She looked stunning, but it wasn't for me. "What's the occasion?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She flinched, her phone clattering to the counter. "Just trying something new," she said, her smile tight. She walked away, and I stood there, the air heavy with what she didn't say. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I tried to check her phone. It was locked, a passcode where there'd never been one. I wasn't the jealous type, but this wasn't jealousy. This was survival. I needed to know if the life I thought we had was already gone. The weeks after the retreat were like living in a house with a leaking roof. Every day, another drip, another sign that things were falling apart. Lisa and I still shared the same Portland Craftsman, still slept in the same bed, but the space between us was a chasm now. She'd come home late, her excuses flimsier each time. The team went for drinks, or I had to prep for a client pitch. Her phone was a constant companion, always face down, always locked. I'd catch her smiling at texts she wouldn't show me, her eyes lit with a spark I hadn't seen in months. "Work's just busy, Ethan," she'd say when I pressed, her voice sharp, like I was the one making trouble. But I wasn't imagining it. The signs were everywhere, and they all pointed to Mike. His name slipped into her stories too often now, casual but deliberate. "Mike nailed the presentation today," she'd say, or "Mike's got this crazy idea for the new campaign." She'd laugh, her voice softer than it ever was with me, and I'd feel my stomach twist. I started noticing other things. Her new perfume, sharper and bolder than the floral one she used to wear. The way she'd spend extra time on her makeup for client meetings. The way she'd turn her smartwatch away when a notification buzzed. Once, I saw her delete a selfie she'd taken that morning, her lips curved in a secretive smile. I checked her phone later, out of a desperate need to know. The photo was gone, not even in the recently deleted folder. It was intentional, like she was covering tracks I wasn't supposed to find. I tried to talk to her to bridge the gap before it swallowed us whole. One night, as we lay in bed, her scrolling through her phone, the screen's glow casting shadows on her face, I took a chance. "Lisa, is everything okay with us?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. She froze, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Why wouldn't it be?" she said, not looking at me. "You've been distant," I said. "It feels like you're somewhere else." She sighed, the kind of sigh that said I was exhausting her. "I'm just tired, Ethan. Work's insane. Don't overthink it." She turned away, her back a wall, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling, knowing she was lying. The doubt gnawed at me, a constant hum beneath my days. I wasn't the jealous type. I trusted her completely, shared passwords, synced calendars, built a life on mutual openness. But now, that trust was crumbling. I started paying closer attention. Wednesdays and Fridays, she'd leave early, her bag packed with files she never opened at home. Her laptop, once left open on the kitchen table, was now password protected. I asked about her closed project reviews, hoping for details, but she brushed me off. "It's boring team stuff," she said, her eyes darting away. You'd fall asleep hearing about it. But there were no late-night emails, no slide decks, no trace of the work she claimed was consuming her. Then came a Thursday that changed everything. I was scheduled to fly to Seattle for a 3-day contract, a high-stakes job for a fintech startup with a server breach. I've been prepping for weeks, my desk a mess of notes and backup drives. Lisa barely glanced up when I kissed her goodbye. "Text me when you land," she said, her eyes glued to her laptop. I nodded, grabbed my bag, and headed to the airport, my mind split between the job and the growing dread in my chest. The Uber driver tried small talk, but I barely responded, lost in thoughts of her smile, the one that wasn't for me anymore. At the terminal, my phone buzzed with a notification. "Your flight has been canceled due to mechanical issues. We apologize for the inconvenience." I stood in line at the counter, rebooking for the next day, but the client was flexible, shifting the meeting schedule without fuss. I didn't tell Lisa I was coming back. Part of me didn't want to. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd find. I grabbed a coffee from a kiosk, ordered another Uber, and 40 minutes later, I was back in our neighborhood, the familiar streets feeling foreign under the weight of my suspicion. The house was quiet when I stepped inside, the air thick with her new perfume. Soft acoustic music drifted from upstairs, a playlist I didn't recognize. I set my bag down, my heart pounding, and noticed 2 wine glasses on the kitchen counter, one with a smudge of her lipstick, the other with fingerprints. The dishwasher was full, the trash unemptied. In the living room, a blanket was draped over the couch, an empty wine bottle tipped on its side. 2 plates sat on the coffee table, scraps of food still clinging to them. My stomach churned. I wasn't supposed to be here. I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last, the music growing louder. Halfway up, I heard it, Lisa's laughter, light and unguarded, the kind I hadn't heard in months. It stopped me cold, not because she was laughing, but because of how free she sounded, how alive. I reached the landing and turned toward her bedroom. The door was ajar, the lights spilling out. I pushed it open and froze. There they were, Lisa and Mike. She was sitting on his lap, wearing my favorite flannel shirt, the one she used to steal when we'd cuddle on lazy Sundays. Her hair was swept to one side, her cheeks flushed, her arms loose around his neck. His hands rested on her thighs, casual, like they'd done this 100 times. They hadn't noticed me yet. For a moment, I stood there, the world narrowing to the sight of them, the sound of her laugh echoing in my skull. Then she turned, just enough to see me, and her face drained of color. Mike stiffened, his hands dropping like he'd touched something hot. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at her, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Is this part of the project, too? Lisa opened her mouth, but no words came. Mike scrambled to his feet, muttering, "Ethan, man, I'm sorry, it's not what it looks like." As if there was another explanation for my wife in his lap, in our bed. Lisa finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I thought you were gone." "I didn't." I cut her off. "You thought wrong." She flinched. I turned to leave, her voice chasing me. "Wait, please, can we talk?" I paused at the top of the stairs, not looking back. "You laughed at me with him," I said. "That was your choice." Then I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, the sound final, like a lock snapping into place. I didn't go to a hotel or call a friend after walking out of our Portland home. I just drove, the road blurring under the weight of Lisa's laughter and Mike's mumbled apologies. My hands gripped the steering wheel, the hum of the engine, the only sound as I left the city behind. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay in a house that no longer felt like mine. By dawn, I'd crossed into Washington, the sky bruised purple over a quiet lake town. I found a small cabin for rent. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just a weathered porch and a view of water that stretched into the mist. It was perfect, a place to disappear. The first few days were raw. I'd wake up tasting betrayal. The image of Lisa in my flannel shirt burned into my mind. I'd sit on the cabin's sagging couch, staring at the lake, replaying every moment. The retreat, her laugh, the wine glasses on our counter. I wasn't angry, not exactly. It was deeper, a hollow ache that made me question who I'd been to her. Had I been enough? Had I ever been? But as the days turned into a week, something shifted. I didn't want to drown in this. I didn't want revenge that would stain me. I wanted truth, cold, undeniable truth, and I wanted it to speak for me. As a cybersecurity analyst, I knew how to find answers in data. Lisa thought she'd covered her tracks, but no one's invisible in a digital world. I started small, accessing our shared cloud storage from my laptop in the cabin's cramped kitchen. She hadn't logged out, a careless mistake. There were photos she hadn't deleted, selfies from mornings she claimed were for work, her smile too intimate, too staged. I found emails too, buried in a folder labeled drafts. They weren't drafts at all, just messages to Mike, sent from her work account during office hours. "Can't wait for Friday," one read. "You make meetings bearable," said another. Each word was a knife, but I kept digging, methodical, like I was auditing a client server. I cross-referenced their work calendars, still accessible through an old admin login Lisa had shared years ago. Wednesdays and Fridays, her closed project reviews, aligned with Mike's off-site client visits. No meeting notes, no deliverables, just gaps in their schedules that matched perfectly. I pulled metadata from the photos, timestamps, locations. One was taken at a downtown hotel. The same day, she'd texted me about a late team dinner. Another showed her in a car, Mike's reflection faint in the window. It was enough to paint a picture, but I needed more. I needed proof that would hold up, not just break my heart. Using a VPN to stay anonymous, I accessed public records and social media. Mike had a habit of checking into bars and restaurants on Instagram, his posts tagged with Lisa in the background, her face half hidden but unmistakable. I archived everything, building a timeline that spanned months. Their affair wasn't a fling. It was deliberate, woven into their work lives. They'd used company time, company resources, even company email for their secret. That was my leverage. I didn't want to hurt them, not physically or personally. I wanted their actions to catch up with them, the way mine had when I walked into our bedroom. I compiled the evidence, screenshots, emails, calendar entries, photos, into a single PDF. I stripped out anything that could trace back to me, keeping it clinical like a report I'd sent a client. Then, using a burner email, I sent it to the HR department of their company, CCing the CEO for good measure. The subject line was simple: ethics violation report. The message was brief. The attached documents detail inappropriate conduct between employees Lisa Moore and Mike Hensley, including misuse of company resources and time. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. A week later, I got a call from my sister, Claire, who'd heard through a mutual friend in Portland. Lisa got fired, she said, her voice cautious. Mike too. Something about a workplace scandal. You okay? I was standing on the cabin's porch, watching the lake ripple under a gray sky. I'm fine, I said, and I meant it. I didn't ask for details, but Claire filled me in any way. The company had launched an investigation after the anonymous tip. The evidence was airtight. HR found more in their internal systems, including flirty Slack messages and expense reports for client dinners that never happened. Lisa and Mike were let go quietly, their reputations in tatters. I didn't smile or celebrate. I just nodded, hung up, and went back to my coffee. Lisa tried to reach me after that. My phone lit up with texts, first apologies, then excuses. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you, one read. It was a mistake. Please talk to me, said another. Then came the voicemails, her voice cracking, begging for a chance to explain. I listened to one, just to see if it would change anything. It didn't. Her words were empty, rehearsed, like she was trying to save herself, not us. I deleted them all, blocked her number, and turned off my phone. She'd made her choice at that fire pit, in our bedroom, in every lie she told. I wasn't her audience anymore. The cabin became my refuge. I worked remotely, taking on new clients, small businesses in the area who needed help securing their networks. The lake was my constant, its quiet lapping a reminder that life went on, even after betrayal. I bought a used chair for the porch, started reading again, books I'd forgotten I loved. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was living. The weight in my chest was lighter, the chains of her lies loosening. I didn't need her apologies or her regret. I needed this silence, truth, and a chance to rebuild. Claire visited a week later, bringing a box of my old things, photo albums, a watch Dad had left me, a stack of sci-fi novels I'd read in college. She sat across from me at the cabin's wobbly table, her eyes searching my face. You look different, she said. Lighter. I shrugged, but she was right. I wasn't the man who'd stood in that bedroom, stunned and small. I was someone new, someone who'd faced the worst and walked away stronger. Don't go back to her, Claire said, her voice firm. You're better than that. I nodded, staring at the lake through the window. I wasn't going back. Not to Lisa, not to that life. I found something better, myself. The lake outside my Washington cabin became my anchor in the weeks that followed. Each morning, I'd wake to the soft lapping of water against the shore, the air crisp with pine and possibility. I'd left Portland behind, Lisa, Mike, the house that smelled of her perfume, and found something I hadn't realized I'd lost, myself. The cabin was small, just a bed, a desk, and a creaky porch chair, but it was enough. I didn't need much, not anymore. I'd traded the weight of betrayal for the quiet of a life I could call my own. Work kept me grounded. I took on local clients, coffee shops, bookstores, a family-run winery, helping them secure their networks against hacks and leaks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and it gave me purpose. My days found a rhythm: coffee and emails at dawn, coding through the afternoon, and evenings by the lake, watching the sun bleed orange into the water. I started running again, the trails around the cabin winding through forests that felt untouched by the chaos I'd left behind. One day, on a whim, I adopted a dog from a nearby shelter, a lanky black lab named Rocky. His goofy grin and boundless energy became my daily reminder that joy didn't need to be complicated. We'd walk the shore at dusk, Rocky chasing sticks into the shallows, and I'd feel the last threads of Lisa's betrayal unravel. She didn't stop trying to reach me. Even after I'd blocked her number, messages found their way through, emails, a handwritten letter slipped into my P.O. box. Ethan, I've lost everything, one email read. I know I hurt you, but I'm hurting too. Please, let's talk. The letter was worse. her words sprawling across 2 pages, a mix of apologies and blame. "You were always so distant," she wrote. "I felt alone, even with you there." I read it once, standing in the post office, then tore it in half and tossed it in the trash. Her pain wasn't my burden anymore. She'd chosen Mike, chosen to laugh at me, chosen to lie. The consequences, her firing, her shattered career, weren't my doing. They were hers. I heard more through Claire, who kept tabs on Portland gossip. Lisa had moved out of our house, renting a studio apartment downtown. Mike had left town, his LinkedIn profile dormant after the scandal. Their affair, once a secret hidden in stolen moments, had unraveled in the harsh light of HR's investigation. The company's ethics board didn't just fire them. It blacklisted them from partner firms, a professional death sentence in their tight-knit industry. I didn't feel glee or vindication, just a quiet satisfaction that the truth had done its work. I'd sent that anonymous report not to destroy them, but to free myself. And it had. Claire visited again, this time with a bottle of local cider and a stack of old family photos. We sat on the porch, Rocky sprawled at our feet, and talked about everything but Lisa. "You're different now," she said, squinting at me in the fading light. "Not just surviving, thriving." I smiled, the first real smile in months. She was right. The Ethan who'd stood in that bedroom, stunned by betrayal, was gone. In his place was someone new, someone who knew his worth, who didn't need validation from a woman who'd made him small. "I'm not going back," I told her. "Not to her, not to that life." Claire nodded, her eyes soft. "Good. You're home now." One evening, I powered on my phone after weeks of leaving it off. I wasn't hiding, I just hadn't needed the noise. The screen lit up with notifications, 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 42 texts, most from Lisa. I scrolled through them, her words a desperate loop. "I'm sorry, Ethan, please call me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I've changed, I swear." One voicemail caught me off guard, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I know what I lost now. I just hope you're okay." I deleted it without replying. Her regret wasn't my responsibility. I'd spent too long carrying her choices. There was a message from Lisa's mom, too, sent a week earlier. "Ethan, I know you're angry, but Lisa's struggling. She didn't mean to hurt you. Come back, please." I shook my head, the words hollow. Lisa's family had always seen me as the fixer, the one who'd smooth things over. But I wasn't that man anymore. I deleted her message, then cleared the rest, the phone screen blank and clean. It felt like shedding a skin I'd outgrown. I thought about going back to Portland just once to collect the last of my things, Dad's watch, a few books, a photo of Claire and me from a camping trip years ago. But the idea faded as quickly as it came. Those things didn't define me anymore. The house, with its ivy-covered porch and Lisa's shoes by the door, belonged to a past I'd left behind. I didn't need closure from her or that place. I found it here, in the lake's quiet, in Rocky's eager bark, in the steady hum of my work. One night, as I sat on the porch with a beer, Rocky dozing beside me, I got a final email from Lisa. "I understand now," she wrote. "I lost you, and I'll live with that. I just hope you found peace." I read it twice, the words heavy but distant, like a storm that had already passed. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Peace wasn't something I'd found. It was something I'd built, piece by piece, in the silence she'd left behind. Now, I live for the mornings when Rocky wakes me with a nudge, for the clients who thank me with a handshake, for the lake that reflects a sky I'm no longer afraid to look at. I'm not the man who stood in that fire pit's glow, shrinking under her laughter. I'm not the man who drove away from a broken home, searching for answers. I'm Ethan Moore, and I live on my terms, in a world where truth matters and betrayal is just a memory. The path ahead is mine, and for the first time, I'm walking it without looking back.